Hello, how's it going? Good, grand, great, fantastic. And no, do not adjust your screens. This is me, Ginger Greek, on the Breakfast Club channel. Now, I was invited by Paul to come and join this channel of illustrious people because Paul said to me in a message, he goes, how can I make this channel better? How can I get more subscribers? I need the best of the best. And when they didn't want to join, he came to me, and this is the result. You get me instead. So, sorry about that. But anyway, let's get on with it. So, what could Ginger Greek possibly be covering in his very first video for the Breakfast Club? So many topics to talk about. Oh my god, there's so many. Okay, Charlottesville. I'm going to talk about Charlottesville. Let's just get on with it. So, a bunch of lobotomized man babies come together and whine and cry about being the superior race. They gathered in Charlottesville, Virginia to protest the taking down of the General Lee statue, a treasonous, treacherous anti-American general who wanted to preserve the Southern tradition of owning human beings, whilst the North rapidly stopped using slaves and industrialized. Yeah. And of course, tragically, as we all know, somebody was killed during the protest when it all erupted into violence. Somebody, of course, drove the car into a crowd of people, injuring 19 and killing one person. Now, what I want to cover in this is there's a few things I want to talk about. I want to talk about, of course, Trump's response. A lot of Republicans that actually came out and rightfully condemned this kind of actions. Well, I think I've just covered that part. But let's get into when tragedies like this happen, usually you expect a measured and strong response from your political leaders, but of course, this being Trump, it was more of a, oh Christ, what's he gonna say now? And lo and behold, it was a, oh Christ, what did he just say? So Trump came out and condemned both sides, said that there was violence on many sides. What do you mean many sides? How many sides were there? There were white supremacists, Nazis, and there was the protesters on the counter-protesters. You can label each one all you like, but they were counter-protesters. Okay, let's get that straight. So Trump chose his sides, and as we all know, he appeased his leader, that is Steve Bannon, by not coming out at first and condemning the white supremacists and the Nazis, which is the default position for any politician. No matter what your actual stance in life is, you have to, when you're in the spotlight, in theory, you should be a little bit more diplomatic. Those days are gone now with Trump in charge. It took him then 48 hours to come out and then suddenly condemn the white nationalists and the supremacists, maybe because a lot of people in the back were saying to him, hey, you know, you're looking like a dumbass out there. But then again, he came out the next day and took his original position. And not only that, he further defended white supremacists and Nazis by then saying, should we take down the Washington statue? Or should we take down Jefferson's statue? And trying to defend these anti-American morons, because that is his base. That's what he is. He is a white supremacist. He is a racist. Who the fuck put Steve Bannon in their office on any other principle than that is what they are? Now, let's go on to the other subject. And that is, of course, the idiots on the right coming out and saying that this is all the fault of Black Lives Matter, Antifa, and all the counter-protesters. They were the ones that instigated the violence. They were the ones that shouldn't have come down there, that they didn't have permits to protest. Okay, first things first. They did have permits to protest. Apparently they had more than two permits to protest. So they had every right to come there and counter-protest the white supremacists. Second of all, they weren't the ones wearing fucking helmets and riot shields and spraying people with mace. And thirdly, they weren't the ones who drove a fucking car into a crowd of people. Alright? And fourth, somebody who was at the protest is wanted by the police, a white supremacist, and he's on video blubbing like a baby, even though on Vice News he was sitting there going, you gotta kill all the Jews, man. You gotta stand, you gotta be strong. Fuck those guys. Sorry for my terrible accent. Alright, so what you have in America here is basically we always talk about institutionalized racism, and this incident proved just that. Alright? It proved just that. Why? Well, let's look at the police. The police stood idly by and barely did a fucking thing whilst all the attacks were happening. Why is that? Their excuse is that the white supremacist protesters veered off from their chosen and dedicated position to go and attack the counter-protesters. If you're police, you anticipate this. But this is, of course, the police in America, who are the dumbest fucks in the civilized world. But I say they're the dumbest fucks. If this was a protest about money, if this was a protest about authority, if this was a protest about equality, suddenly the police know what they're doing. And suddenly they're all geared up and ready to fucking protect the money. Okay? The hypocrisy coming out is oozing so bad that it needs a shot of social justice. Not the crazy kind of social justice. So for those that would claim that I'm talking bullshit and would say that it was the counter-protesters that incited the riots and the violence and all of that, just because one or two of them have punched a Nazi in the past, which is the right thing to do. Okay, in fact, let me quickly go on that. When one side's principle is to eradicate human beings that aren't exactly like them, then don't fucking complain if the other side of the argument is to punch you and put you in your place and to show you that, you know what, we're just as fucking strong as you and we are ready to fight and fuck you up just as much as you're ready to kill and murder us. Okay, let's get that principled, alright? Don't start fucking calling people on the left hypocrites for being violent when the group on the right are not just violent, but they will kill you. We're not instigating murder, they are. They're instigating fucking genocide. Right. Furthermore, if you don't believe me that the authorities don't give a shit about white supremacists protesting and they like it because in reality they are pro-authoritarian, let's have a look at the people that protested in the inauguration against Trump. Jeff Sessions and the Department of Justice wanted to gather the information of 1.3 million people that protested or visited a certain website that helped fund the protest against Donald Trump. Why do they need that information? Well, I'll tell you why. Because it's simple. Because Trump is such an egomaniac and a borderline... No, he's not borderline fascist. He is a fascist in a democracy. And it shows with some of the policies he's tried to push. And not just him. Him and his fucking cronies who are trying to destroy the Affordable Care Act to replace it with something that just gives tax breaks to the riches. Okay? I forgot my train of thought. But anyway, why would you want to gather all this information? And it's quite simple. To go after the people that are against you because your fragile ego cannot understand that people fucking hate you and everything you stand for. And that you are anti-American and you're fucking just a fascist. Alright? So people that argue that we on the right, on the left are against free speech and against everything that America stands for. Why the fuck are the Republicans and the Department of Justice trying to gather all information of anti-Trump protesters? When you have the law going against the people, well, then you no longer live in a democracy. Okay, you live in either a dictatorship, a fascist state, or basically with America, you're in a corporatocracy or whatever it is that you want to call it. So, to finish off, I just want to talk about Nazis and the hypocritical and stupid ideology that Nazis in America have, and Britain and anywhere outside of Germany. Okay? If you think that your stance, your ideology is pro-American or pro-British, then, my good friend, you are grossly mistaken. You are grossly anti-American. You fight against everything that America fought for and Britain fought for in the Second World War. You do not have the right to call yourself an American. You do not have the right to call yourself anything other than a traitor. If that is your ideology, if that is your stance. And what pisses me off even more is people like this, racists in general, nationalists in general, do not look at the elites up above in the oligarchs and blame them for all the shit that they are going through. They blame the weak, the poor, the defenseless, because they themselves are weak. They themselves, sadly, are also poor, and they themselves are defenseless in the grand scheme of things. Get your priorities right. If you are angry at how things are, how the fuck is it the poor to blame? How the fuck are the immigrants to blame? How? That is all. I've got it off my chest. That's what I wanted to say. Thank you so much for inviting me to the Breakfast Club. What a way to start. Bye.